Now that we are a week removed of the initial bids placed from Netflix, Paramount, and from Comcast Universal, now we can check in with what's going on with the Warner Brothers sale, because apparently, and a lot of people are talking about this is probably going to get wrapped up before the end of the year. Obviously, this weekend is going to be, it's going to be a little bit slow, with Thanksgiving and all that stuff, but there's still a lot of goings on, okay? There's a lot of posturing that is happening out there, and well, we can kind of see which direction things are going. So yes, the new Warner Brothers bid reportedly undercut Zaslav's $30 per share price goal. And that's what's interesting about these bids, because I haven't seen any concrete financial numbers from any of the bids that are out there. We've known how aggressive Paramount and David Ellison has been, and we'll obviously come back on that one, but don't sleep on Netflix, okay? They've been making some noise behind the scenes here, and they're really seeming like legitimate contenders, although with everybody that's up there, I would probably put them in third place. But Comcast has been, they've been posturing as well. But let's take a look at this, okay? Because when all of the sales talk was kicking off and Zaslav was getting ready to initiate this entire sale, there was a rumor out there that he really wanted to instigate a bidding war to drive up that share price, to do what's best for his shareholders, and he wanted to get in on and around that $30 mark. But apparently, according to some of these bids, at least the first round bids that are out there, you're not going to get close to that $30 per share. So yes, the first round of Warner Brothers bids has officially landed, and the early numbers reportedly don't come close to the $30 per share that Zaslav hoped to command. According to On the Money, offers were delivered at noon on Thursday, past Thursday, obviously, not on Thanksgiving, and insiders say the winning figure will likely fall short of Zaslav's target. Ooh, so how does that play into the Saudis' overpriced valuation of Warner Brothers, either partnering with Comcast or with Ellison's group at $71 billion? Because that would have pushed stock prices quite close, if not eclipsing that $30 mark. But if it's likely to fall short, okay, so I guess Warner could be staying on domestic shores after all. Now that the real contenders have stepped up to the field, the picture of who is actually in the race is much more focused and much smaller than months of online discourse suggested. Yes, no Amazon, no Apple, no other big tech companies, just simply Paramount Skydance, Comcast, and Netflix. Paramount Skydance, powered by David Ellison and backed by Oracle founder Larry Ellison, his FADA, entered an all-stock bid for $23.50 per share and is expected to increase to around $25 in coming rounds. Advisors close to Ellison are warning not to push past the upper 20. Specifically, they don't want to cross 27. Meanwhile, Comcast and Netflix each face serious scrutiny. The Post states outright that both companies face significant regulatory hurdles from the Trump administration. That's another thing we're going to have to put a pin in here for a second. Hurdles that could drag the approvals out for years. And in Comcast's case, debt concerns complicate the equation even further. Zaslav may want a price with a 3 in it in the early rounds simply isn't supporting that number. So yes, recently, some corners of social media and certain industry personalities repeatedly floated the idea that the Saudi Arabian Public Investment Fund, the PIF, was close, even a signature away from buying Warner Brothers Discovery outright. Yes, exactly. The speculation was loud enough to become an ongoing talking point among fans and commentators tracking Warner Brothers Discovery's future. But now, with the former WBD bids arriving, something stands out clearly. PIF isn't mentioned in any of the reporting surrounding active bidders. So yes, Habibi is sitting this one out. Could they affix themselves to a winning bid in order to gain a foothold in an acquisition? That is entirely possible. As it sits right now, they are remaining an outside interested party and nothing else. And so now that we have those three competitors that are out there, how exactly do they shape up? What do these early bids look like in telling us what the ultimate direction of this sale is pointing to? I've said this from the beginning, and many other people have as well. This is kind of Paramount's deal to lose, okay? Because they seem to have the strongest connections to Warner Brothers right now, and they seem to be making the most aggressive connections of the other two competitors. But yes, politics and not just price are steering this ship, because ultimately, well, for anybody that's out there, for as much as the regulatory hurdles for Comcast and Netflix were discussed, like Paramount's not exactly on the outside looking in regards to that, okay? They own CBS. They have a litany of cable and network stations as well. They're a bit, not as big as Warner Brothers, but they're a fairly large production house in and of themselves. So yeah, there would be issues, but those issues could be assuaged a bit if they have the right connections in the right places. So yes, one of the most striking elements in the Post reporting is the political angle. The Trump administration clearly prefers the Ellison-led Paramount Skydance. A source told On the Money, "I can't imagine Trump wants to approve any deal that makes Brian Roberts or Reed Hastings stronger. The Ellisons, whose ties to Trump are well documented, are expected to enjoy a streamlined, quick and clean 6-month antitrust review. Netflix and Comcast, by contrast, could wind up in regulatory limbo for 2 years or longer with no guarantee of approval. If you're on a board trying to sell a $70 billion media empire, timing matters just as much as price." Exactly. And so, yeah, you have the regulatory inside track, but also, okay, Paramount's bid surges ahead as CNN, okay, get this one, CNN becomes the unexpected prize in Warner Brothers' Discovery war. Oh, because they're probably the only ones willing to take on that colossal burden? I would imagine so. And when the bidding battle for Warner Brothers Discovery kicked off this week, very few expected CNN to become an asset dominating the conversation. But here we are, and according to industry insiders speaking to the New York Post, Paramount Skydance is suddenly the frontrunner to acquire a WB, and CNN is surprisingly the reason why. At first glance, it seems counterintuitive. CNN's ratings have been cratering for years, its reputation has declined sharply among half the country, and most Americans interact with it only at airport terminals. Yet the Ellison family, Larry and David, reportedly sees the struggling network as a business worth not only keeping, but expanding, because, yeah, okay, like CNN does have name recognition, it does have... I know they've done a monumental amount to tank their reputation, but it is still a brand worth having, and especially if you can rehab it, if you can spin it into something less biased. I could see it working. They see CNN, warts and all, as a very profitable business worth saving. That one sentence from Charles Gasparino's reporting captures the core dynamic driving the deal. Paramount Skydance is the only bidder that actually wants CNN in the current political environment. That gives them tremendous regulatory advantage because, yeah, they aren't like Netflix, who just still kind of wants some things piecemeal, even though they're willing to extend. This is some other reporting that's out there. Extend Warner Brothers movies, a theatrical release. But does Netflix want any of those archaic networks? They want TNT? Do they want TBS, True TV, the rest of that stuff? I don't really know. It doesn't really fit into their profile. Unless they want to make designated streaming channels, it doesn't really make much sense to take on all of that burden, especially because we know how well a CNN streaming service has performed in recent years. So yes, that kind of leaves Netflix on the outside. Comcast, obviously, very familiar with the goings-on for all of those type of networks. They have the entire suite of NBC channels. So yeah, that would just slot in appropriately. But yes, according to the report, President Trump is paying very close attention to the sale due to CNN's long antagonistic relationship with his administration. Trump desperately wants CNN neutralized out of the anti-MAGA coverage, a broadcast executive told the Post. And Trump reportedly sees Larry Ellison, a major donor and someone already overseeing a media overhaul at CBS, as the ideal person to set CNN straight. His thinking, according to the Post, is that the Ellisons would run CNN the same way they are currently reshaping CBS under Barry Weiss, who's hired to squeeze left-wing bias out of its news programming. And of the three big cable networks, like, CBS was probably the most balanced, and I use that very trepidatiously, but now that they are trying to see if they can weasel out as much left-wing bias as possible, I mean, it would be a laudable experiment, and if it works, that would be tremendous stuff. But that is something that is provably happening. In regards to the Trump illusions, they're a little bit more vague. But earlier this week, we got, I guess, a little bit of an insight into this, that there is some validity behind the whole Trump-Ellison collaboration, because all of a sudden, Rush Hour 4 is in the works. Okay, that might sound like a total non sequitur, but follow me here for a second. At Paramount, at Trump's request. What? Okay. First of all, the first three Rush Hour movies kind of gave away the ghost on that one, were Warner Brothers joints. Okay, but now it's in the works over at Paramount. And why on God's green earth does Donald Trump want another Rush Hour movie? Like, Jackie Chan is pushing 90, okay? He's a lot closer to looking like the old Asian bag lady than he is the action movie icon that he was of the 80s and 90s. And Chris Tucker, I guess he's probably got nothing better to do, so it probably wasn't really difficult to sign him up for the new film. But yes, Rush Hour 4 is in the works, with Paramount on board to distribute the newest installment of the buddy cop series. The long-gestating sequel is reportedly the beneficiary of some Oval Office intervention. President Donald Trump had personally requested that the studio revive the franchise, as first reported by Semaphore. Brett Ratner, here's a name that we haven't heard in a very long time, who directed the first 3 installments before his career was derailed in 2017 by Me Too allegations. Oh, don't worry about that. Is returning to direct the 4th film. The filmmaker has gotten close to the first family while directing the Melania documentary, which Amazon paid $40 million to release. Rush Hour 4, which will see the return of original stars Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker, will mark Ratner's first feature film since 2014's Dwayne Johnson-led Hercules. I was just moving around some of my Blu-rays. I actually have that. I've never watched it, but for whatever reason, I actually have a copy of that. Anyways, Paramount will be paid a flat distribution fee to release Rush Hour 4 theatrically, sources say, and won't be on the hook for the market to market or finance the film. Meanwhile, Warner Brothers, here we go, whose New Line label backed the original 98 Rush Hour and the sequels in 2001 and 2007, will get first dollar gross. So yeah, Warner Brothers is going to be making the movie, Paramount's going to be distributing the movie, but when it's all said and done, once this whole deal with Warner Brothers goes through, is it really going to even matter? Differentiating who's distributing it and who's making it. And so while this isn't necessarily the smoking gun as to who's ultimately going to end up with Warner Brothers, it really does show a very close correlation between both houses, and it has all of the other elements that you would be looking for as to who is the front runner in a potential sale. So yeah, it always looked like Paramount was going to end up with Warner Brothers, and this right here is another step along that path that is going to be wrapping up in the very near future. And I'm going to be following it because I find this very interesting, because if Paramount ends up with Warner Brothers, a lot of my favorite IPs are in hands that really want to reshape the industry. They want to get it back to some sort of semblance of normalcy, and that is something I think we can all get behind. So with all that said, thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Cosmello. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.